Welcome, everyone, to It Tastes Different Gaming News. What's on the news today? Another reason to hate Unity. Unity unveils a Unity unveils the Unity runtime fee, and it's a doozy. Unity states, we are introducing a Unity runtime fee that is based upon each time a qualifying game is downloaded by an end user. Unity's announcement reads, in part, we choose this because each time a game is downloaded, the Unity runtime is also installed. Also, we believe that an install-based fee, this is the part that really cracks me up. We believe that an install-based fee allows creators to keep the ongoing financial gains from player engagement, unlike a revenue share. Ooh. The Unity runtime fee is scheduled to take effect on January 1st of 24. Now, as you may imagine, developers are, pardon my language, but pissed off. This person here states, if you make a game, and the game is freemium, the game makes $200,000 from in-app purchases after being installed 3 million times. That means they owe 20 cents per 2.8 million installs. So that's $560,000, which is $360,000 more than they made. And there are boatloads of developer comments and things like that. And it's really going to take a toll. Games that are on Game Pass and things like that are going to be hit quite a lot as well. So it's just another reason the gaming world is going to crap in a handbasket. So now, before I start ranting and raving, I'll give somebody else a chance. So, Pat, let's go to you. You look like a Unity guy. You look like you're freemium. Are you freemium, Pat? How do you feel about this?
So it's an interesting concept, right? I mean, Unity I've always felt like has been the cheaper engine compared to like Unreal, because Unreal's always done a revenue share or like once you've sold X number of copies, depending on your license, then you owe them money. Right. And that is the direction that Unity is now going. I've not compared their price comparisons, which I probably should have, just to see which one's better or worse in these day and age. But, I'm pretty sure Unreal Engine is basically anything over $1 million in revenue. You start owing them a percentage. So, I mean, now we're on par, right? Unity and Unreal. So if you were expecting to not have to pay Unity anything outside of your original licensing fee, depending on if you were doing the Pro Enterprise or whatever type of fees, well, guess what? They basically did the bait and switch, pulled the wool over your eyes, right? So that is a weird thing, right? I feel bad for these developers because, yeah, the thing you were talking about was a freemium, right? We put out a free game. And they're basing it off of not really revenue. It sounds like number of installs. So if you're a freemium game, you're free with a microtransaction. Once you hit that 200,000, if you have the lower tiered plan, it's like 200,000. I think if you have the higher tiered plan, it's $1 million. That's the revenue share plan, I think. If that happens, then you start owing them money. And I mean, I've read some really bad articles on this, and it really does sound like some bad news, right? Because they're talking about download bombing. There's review bombing, but there's also a thing where they're talking about people can basically get people to start downloading the game, and it counts as a download because it's all based on the engine, the runtime engine install on the client PC or the client system, right? So every time it installs, that's a click against them. And if somebody is out there to get them or, whatever, they'll just have their botnet start installing the application. And guess what? Now, next thing you know, you've got a new 100,000 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 installs out of nowhere because somebody decided they were going to hurt you. Unity says they have a way of deciding this, but how are you going to decide what's real or fake on a download section like that? Like, I mean, I can understand if you're a game that, I mean, no, I can't honestly understand, because you can be a game that's flatline at you maybe get maybe like 1,000 downloads a month, you know, whatever. And then all of a sudden you get popular. Everybody finds your game. I'm talking like Phasmophobia, Among Us, all kinds of games like that, where it's just like flatline and all of a sudden it's like takes off. Millions of people are playing it. That looks suspicious, right? But in, you know, if how are they going to differentiate between that and download bombing, you know, or just downloading to cause harm? How are they going to do that? That to me is a huge problem. And from what I also read too, is that they're not going to charge the developers for Game Pass or like Sony's Essentials or you know, their premium pros and all that stuff. They're going to pass the cost off to them. And I'm like, they're going to tell you where to stick that cost. They're not going to pay your engine runtime fees. Like, how does that? So what's going to end up happening is Microsoft's like, oh, your game's built. Microsoft's going to be like, oh, your game's built on Unity. We need to charge you a revenue share fee now instead of just the 30% to put on the store or whatever. Because I saw an article, part of the article that talked about that, where if you have on Game Pass, it's not going to go to you. It's going to go to Microsoft, you know, Game Pass. Yeah. So Unity, this blew up huge, and Unity has since started walking back some of these aspects, right? And trying to clarify what's happening. So it's basically saying the fee will only apply to the initial installation of game that developers are not on the game, and developers are on the hook for installation through Xbox Game Pass. The fees instead being passed to the platform holders like Xbox. That to me sounds freaking stupid. Like, Microsoft's going to play game with that. They're going to be like, we're just going to pass it along to you. So even though Unity's trying to clarify this and say it doesn't apply to this, it doesn't apply to charity games. Like, there has to be a flag in the engine that flips that says this is a charity game, because it's also not supposed to apply to demos. So you have to flip code changes in your game depending on if you're giving it away for a charity thing, or, you know, because I could make a game and then decide 2 years later I want to give that away as a charity bundle, right? And now I have to go in and update my code to say this is now flipping this flag for all these units sold, you know, through this license key or whatever, that these are, you know, charity based games, or this is demo. So it's so much left to question, in my opinion. This is going to screw over developers. I mean, really, it is. Unity is having trouble, right? They've been laying off people. They've had some revenue problems, and now this is their answer to get it back, which basically they're kind of falling in line with what Unreal does, in my opinion, a little bit. So, it's kind of weird, because I've read conflicting articles too. Like, some of it talks about number of installs, some of it talks about revenue threshold. Like, how do they know how much revenue someone gained from a game, right? Like, I can say my game's $30, and so they're going to calculate that and say 200,000 if I have the Unity Personal, Unity, you know, the Unity Plus, because basically it says we won't start dinging you for this until you make $200,000 in a 12-month calendar period, or have 2,000 installs over the lifetime of the game. So one or the other, right? Whichever happens first. It's pretty much what's happening here. And that's for the Unity Personal, Unity Plus. If you do in the Pro, it's like $1 million or 1 million installs. And with the Enterprise, it's still the same. It's $1 million or 1 million installs. How are they going to track that? And how do they track unique installs? Right? Like, if I have the game and I install it, uninstall it, and then come back to it a week later, that's another install, right? Are they going to track that as an install? Or let's say I install it, because if they're using hardware markers to track that, let's say I install it, I then buy a new PC, rebuild it, and build this PC, and then install it on that one. Now I have installed it twice, and I only bought it once. So there's too much wrong with this type of a system. And I think Unity is making a mistake. And here's the problem. And they know that they've got these developers by the balls, really. Because if you are 3 years into a 5-year development cycle, you're screwed. You have nothing to do but push this game out. If you are 3, 4, or 5 years into your 5-year development cycle to push this game to market, you have nothing you can do. If you are 1 or 2 years in your development cycle, you really have to think hard to yourself, can we really afford to restart on a different engine? And I hope a lot of game developers that are using this that are in the 1 or 2 year mark say, screw you, Unity, we're going to another engine, or we'll develop our own or something. If you're a small time company, you're probably not developing your own engine, but some have. This is a dick move. That's what I want to say. It's a dick move by Unity, and they know it, but they're hurting. And this is the way that they know they're going to get revenue share, because there's also talk of like backwards. I haven't heard if they walked that one back yet, but there's been talk of them doing like backwards. And I don't think that's legal, to be honest with you. Like they had a contract and a license, and now all of a sudden they're like, we're changing this and we're going to also backdate this. I'm like, no, you can't do that. So I read articles. I don't know how much this is true or not, because there's just too much fluff with this. I mean, the Unity blog alone was a pain to kind of read through this. So it was a slog to read through, and I read through it multiple times, and I'm going, I don't understand this. Some of the stuff is just out there on how they're doing it, and it's probably scary to the developers because they're having to decipher this now. And so basically, let's just take it for an example of this. So if you're using Unity Personal or Unity Plus, once you reach $200,000 in revenue, or 200,000 installs, they're basically going to take 20 cents per install from you. Wow. So once thresholds are met, 20 cents per install. Doesn't seem like a lot in the grand scheme of things, but if you're a freemium game, or your game's been out on the market for years and you're now selling it at the $10 mark or whatever to get people to buy it, and then all the ecosystems out there taking their 30% cut, and now you're getting $7, and now you're getting $6.80 on top of any other fees that are coming out there. Game developers are getting screwed out of this deal. And so it's really, really garbage. And it's really not fair to the smaller studios, right? Because they are the ones getting hit the hardest, right? $200,000 or 200,000 installs have the highest fees. That's 20 cents per install. If you're a bigger fish, you have tiered systems. The first 1 to 100,000 of the mid tier is 15 cents. The next tier, the highest tier, the enterprise, is 0.12 cents, basically 12.5 cents. So 12.5 cents. And it just goes down from there depending on the number of downloads. You get all the way down to a cent per install if you have over 1 million downloads at a time. So there's bad juju, bad Unity. Unity needs to go sit in a corner, let old Papa Rick have his way with her, pop out some more kids or whatever, Bad Unity. Nick, what do you think about this Unity runtime fee?
It's pretty bad. Yeah, you're exactly right. And it's pretty bad that's why Cult of Lamb is they're going to stop selling their game come January 1st. And it really sucks for, yes, other engines have royalties and stuff like that you pay, right? Unity, or I'm sorry, Unreal, they have, 5% royalties due to the engine. And if you release a product on the Epic's game store, you pay Epic 12% of the revenue earned and keep 88%. Right. But the thing about Epic and these other these other engines out there is that's up front, right? When you go in and you do this, exactly what you're getting. Where Unity's always been that kind of freemium, a way for developers to get their foot in the door kind of engine, I feel like. And with this, they're kind of, it's not just that they're pricing individuals. I mean, but this is per download, right? I mean, these other ones do it based on revenue, right? You make a certain amount and they say, okay, now we're going to start taking it. Where Unity is saying, hey, anytime your game gets downloaded, we're just going to take money from you. And it's like, okay, well, if I only make, I think in the article we're looking at, one guy, I don't remember if you said this, but he's like, there's a tweet that he said, I make a game. The game is free. The game makes 20,000 from in-app purchases after being installed 3 million times. We now owe Unity 20 cents per 2.8 million installs. That's 560,000. That's 360,000 more than we made. So now you owe Unity more money than you actually made. And it's like, I mean, talk about a way to kill your engine, right? For Unity. It's like, wow, you guys just, here's the thing. The CEO of Unity is John Riccitiello. John Riccitiello used to be the CEO of EA. Back in 2011, this is the same guy that said that proposed a model where players in online multiplayer games such as Battlefield who ran out of ammo could make an easy, instant, real money payment for a quick reload. Basically saying we could put something in there to where they run out of ammo in their clip that they have to pay $1 to reload. This is also the same guy that said anybody who makes a game and doesn't put microtransactions in it is, and just quoting him, a fucking idiot. So clearly this is one of those CEOs that shouldn't be a CEO. This is the guy that he's like one of those dudes that hey man, I know how to make a quick buck, even though the quick buck, sure, you can make it, but no one's going to play along with your quick buck, right? It's like the stupidest idea. Like, yeah, it would make money if people would go along with it, but nobody's going to go along with it. So you ain't going to make anything. I mean, you got developers. I mean, this is why they're going to end up just backtracking everything, because you're going to have so many developers that are going to back out, are going to change engines if they can, right? If they can afford to. But it also, like Pat says, it screws over those developers that are, close to release or midway through making their game. And now they're like, we don't have the time, the money, and the resources to change engines. What do we do? Do we just cancel our game outright? Do we release it and just hope for the best? Right? Because in this case, they could end up owing Unity more than their game made. Right? And so, and you have the issue with, download bombing and stuff like that, and they had an FAQ, and I was trying to find it where the people were asking questions about certain things. And I know a lot of this stuff they rolled back because initially it was even demos. We're going to demo downloads. We're going to charge, initially it was Game Pass, downloads were going to be charged to the developer and stuff like that. And now they've said like, oh, well, Game Pass will go to Microsoft. Yeah, Microsoft's going to be like, and you owe us now, and they're not going to do that. And then, in demos and like Pat said, charity and stuff like that, you put it on Humble Bundle and these things. I mean, it's like, man, talk about burn your company to the ground. He just like put all the lighter fluid on it, and he's like got the match in his hand. He's like, you want me to strike it? And they're like, hold on a minute. He's like, I could do it. We'll make a lot of money with this. That's just how I feel with it, because they're basically just killing their engine at this point, right? Even if they walk it back completely, I think it's going to be really hard for developers, future developers and current ones to stick with Unity at that point, right? I mean, this is overall just very asinine and a stupid like idea, right? Even him being the CEO of EA and making those stupid decisions, like gamers, and with microtransactions and stuff, like gamers don't like microtransactions, and gamers have kind of somewhat accepted them in somewhat, but recently, especially recently here in the last few years or so, I've noticed a big pushback. It seems like from gamers in small and subtle ways to push back against microtransactions and things like that. We had Baldur's Gate, and that really opened up, that is no microtransactions, a fully complete game. And that really opened up, I think, a lot of people's gamers and maybe some developers' eyes to like, oh yeah, we don't need these stupid cosmetics or other crap, right? Like, as gamers, we don't need that stuff. We don't require it. Like, we kind of like that game that doesn't have any of this crap in it. So I think Unity, I mean, if the board is smart, they'll get rid of the CEO. It's probably the same thing EA did. They're like, man, this guy's going to dig us an early grave. Maybe, that's a stupid, EA already made one stupid choice whenever they used to have that. And I don't know if the guy was the CEO at that time or not, but they had that thing with the sports games back in the day, with the little time cards in them or whatever. I can't remember what they were, but they were like, the little cards in there. I don't know. I'll have to look it up and see, but they sold them with those little cards that they tried for a while. And that didn't go over so well. And they stopped that pretty quickly. I'll see if I can find something on it, but I mean, you have CEOs, you have these big companies that, they don't care about the people that made them big, right? The developers going out and using these engines made Unity, the way that Unity was developed, yes, and in the way that Unity is much easier to use, but then developers coming in and utilizing and showing gamers and other developers the power that Unity has, and that developed, made that engine popular, right? It's the people that used it and showcased it and made games off of it that made the engine popular, right? And when you take your engine and your product and you screw over the people that are using it, well, those people are just going to go find something else to use. There's other engines out there, not just Unreal. There are other engines out there. There is one, I can't remember the name of it, but it's very similar to Unity. And so they could go and start using that engine, right? Or some of these other engines out there. So, I mean, in Unity's case, it's like, you're not the only one out there, buddy. So don't screw over the people you got.
I mean, I found the FAQ from earlier that we were talking about. So they made some clarification, and that's why it changed. The URL changed. But what I would like to say first, before Shane gets his little piece in, because I know he's probably just itching to give them the middle finger, that they haven't reduced anything else, by the way. You still pay your yearly licensing fees to them. So on top of your yearly fees, you have to pay this fee. But they did clarify a few things. Like, so on the part of what the one guy had said about his freemium game. So basically they made the claim that they basically either backtracked or just clarified it, because it was a little vague, but they basically said the runtime fee will apply to games that have made $200,000, and this is on the personal plan, $200,000 USD or more in the last 12 months and have had at least 200,000 per game lifetime installs. So you have to meet the revenue threshold before this kicks in. So if you haven't made the revenue threshold, they're not going to charge you. So the guy who gave the freemium one, which was before they made this clarification, I saw the tweet too. That's what they put in there. So basically, they aren't going to do this to somebody who's not made the revenue threshold. You have to make the revenue threshold first in a 12-month calendar period. So once you make $200,000 US dollars and you make 200,000 and you hit 200,000 lifetime installs. So once you hit that 200,000 lifetime installs, once you start making over $200,000 a year, that's when the revenue share starts kicking in, basically. Or it's not even revenue share, it's per download. So, and then also, because I had mentioned it, they don't care how many times you install it on different devices. And that's in here. One of the FAQs is, do installs of the same game by the same user across multiple devices count as different installs? And the answer is, we treat devices as different installs. We don't want to track identity across different devices. So if you install this game 10 times, they don't give a shit. It's counting towards your lifetime install fee. If I install this game 10 times in a year, just add to their total count. I think, which is stupid because there are some times where I need a little bit of space, but I'm going to come back to it and I'll install it, uninstall it, install it. I mean, think about Xbox and PlayStation. I do that crap all the time. I'm like, I'm going to pick this game back up and I'll probably install and uninstall the same game 3 or 4 times in a year before I finish beating it. It's just weird. They've just made a bunch of like claims. So one of them is, once my game passes both revenue and install count threshold, will I be charged retroactively for all the installs up to that point? And the answer they said was no. The install fee is only charged on incremental installs that happen after the thresholds have been met. So they're not retroactively doing anything, it seems like. And they did clarify that how they're going to do the demos. So basically, will a demo or a game in open access or beta count towards the Unity runtime fees? So, and they basically said, if a user can access a full game, example, in-game upgrade or purchase, then installs count towards the fee. If a user can't access the full game, exactly, it's only one level is offered, then no. But early access games are not considered demos, so those count as full games. So if you get in game on early access, so just imagine open betas. Those count. You install it, you play the open beta, you get out, and you uninstall it because the beta code is not the same. You're going. There has to be what I have some questions about is. Isn't there some type of law for them to collect this data? Like, that sounds like there's almost privacy laws that's invaded here by tracking that I installed this on my device without giving them approval. I did not give them permission. So they got to start building in into their new terms or, end user license agreement. So they're doing a lot of stuff that just shady. They're talking about not charging a fee for reinstalls, but how do they track reinstalls unless they're tracking my device identity? They've already contradicted themselves in their own FAQ, right? Because they're basically saying, we don't want to track identity, so we don't know if they're putting it in, but they're tracking my device's identity. But my device identity can change if I get a console, my console red rings or dies, and I send it to Microsoft or Sony and they fix it. But what their fix was change out of MOBO. My device IDs have changed. My PC video card goes out or whatever device ID they're tracking in that one. Then what are they going to do, right? I am wholly against this because they're double dipping, technically, charging a licensing fee and charging this revenue share. Whereas like Unreal, there is no licensing fee, no matter who you are. They only charge you a revenue share of 5% once you hit $1 million. So almost sounds like the Unreal Engine's the better deal now. But Shane, what do you think, man? It sounds like really shady deal here going on by Unity.
Well, look at who their CEO is, Captain Fucking Asshat, pardon my language, but what a definition of piece of POS. Yeah, I mean, everything you guys said is, balls on accurate. I mean, just a good example, Cuphead. They use the Unity engine. That's 5 million downloads, 5 million copies they've sold. And that was from 2017 till today. Now, I don't know if they're still getting downloads. My kids loved it. I know the DLC came out, they re-downloaded it. So that's just another chunk of change to go to Unity, which is a load of crap. DLC, I think, should be null and void out of it. Because to me, it's a part of the game. But, that's just me. But games like Cuphead, Genshin Impact, there's a few other pretty popular games, like the Goose Game. A little indie developed game, the Goose Game. I don't know what they made, how many downloads. I'm not getting into all that, but there's a little indie developer, so if they hit that 200,000 threshold on sales and purchases, that's dangerous. And what's going to happen is they're going to stop making games on Unity. They're going to start pulling their games off of consoles and PC because they do not want to sell that. They do not want to have their game downloaded. I mean, so if a Goose Game guy, he's on the cusp of hitting those caps where he has to start paying, he could say, all right, I'm done. Pull the game. I'm not paying you crap. Yeah, that's what's going to end up happening. And it pisses me off, but it's the nature of the gaming industry now. It's not about games anymore. I mean, it's just not. We're losing developers and we're gaining corporations. We're losing story-driven games for money profit making games. I mean, it's all gambling anymore. You know, Battlefield used to be a top-notch game. Now it's, you know, this last iteration is nothing but hey, buy this card, you get these points. It's disgusting and it makes me so goddamn angry. And if we can get, like Nick brought up, Baldur's Gate is a perfect example of what is wrong with the gaming industry. They put out a game that ran beautifully. They put out a game that didn't have a billion gig download patch to fix all the problems, or at least 10% of the problems that you know, they wouldn't fix. They didn't have any of that. They didn't have all the DLC or the freaking loot boxes and crap. And other developers were coming out complaining about how that game was released. That, you know, you shouldn't expect that. That's a load of shit. You should expect it. You should expect the thing you purchased to work properly. You should expect the thing you purchased to be all goddamn there. And this Unity thing is just another example of what the hell's wrong with the gaming industry. So the CEO should be put in a Russian gulag and have rats shoved up his ass. But that's just my feelings.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the big dogs are going to have to come out. Like when I say big dog, I'm talking like Microsoft, because Microsoft has a crap ton of games.
Yep.
That are developed by studios they own that are running on Unity that are on Game Pass. Like think of Wasteland series, think of the Battletoads thing that just came out, Fallout Shelter, all this crap. You know, Ori is on Unity, all this stuff, Pillars, Recore. What the Microsoft just needs to go, well, guess what? You're losing all of our revenue because we're no longer going to license your engine. And we're no longer going to make games on your engine. So you're losing all of our revenue. And the little guys are not going to go to your engine first, probably, anymore, because you don't have the better pricing structure. If they don't have it's always kind of weird anyway. If like Unreal Engine 5, if you don't make $1 million, they're not going to take any money from you. Now, if you make $1 million, they start taking 5% revenue shares. Which can be a lot, if you're charging $70 a game and you're going to be a AAA studio, and I can understand that, right? But there is the big dogs out there. This is going to make effect because basically they're going to charge the distributor, not the developer, the distributor. But the distributor is going to turn right around and charge it back to you, right? Because they're going to take it. Like as a publisher, they pay money, publish the game up front, and then they take a bunch of money until they recoup their costs. Now, if they got to start giving up 5%, it's going to take even longer for them to recoup their costs, which means that developer takes longer to realize any revenue. Because if I'm Microsoft and I'm Sony, I know exactly what I'm doing. If you're charging me to put if you're putting your Unity game on my service and they're going to charge me because I'm the distributor for Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, I'm taking more than what I do now. Whether that means I'm upping it 1%, 2%, 5%, whatever they're going to do. They're going to use this as an excuse to up Unity Engine games cost to do business on their shop. And it also means that whatever they're negotiating for Game Pass is going to become less of a good deal for those smaller indie developers now, or smaller developers that were putting on Game Pass to make money. Bad deal all around. And the former EA CEO is about to become another former CEO. I really hope so. So
if anybody hires that human poop stain to do anything in the gaming industry again, I'm done. I'm done. I'm going to go back to playing Dreamcast, PlayStation 1, OG Xbox, arcade, pick up sticks, or fucking yo-yo. I'm done with the gaming industry. I'm just tired of it. Bullshit. All right. You guys got me depressed. I'm going to go take my medicines now. So, yeah, Unity, the Great Divider, and the CEO of Poop Stains is ruining the game industry. So, great day. You guys got anything else for, as Pat says, beat the horse? All right. All right. Well, if you made it to the end, and I hope you did, make sure you hit that like and share. Hit the subscribe button. Tell us all about your experience with Unity if you've used it, and let us know what you think about this news in the gaming industry in total. Because the way I see it, we're going to hell in a handbasket. But again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. See ya.